You know, the word gospel means good news. And the really good news is that you have access to everything that you believe is a problem for you. Is that great news? Because if it depends on somebody else or circumstances, you're pretty much permanently screwed. It's like they need to. If only they would change, right? I'm transmitting Nima then. I want to get up in front of the room. Yeah, last night was fabulous, sweetheart. Thank you so much. The good news being that you have access is that we come back to the realization that everything that happens to us happens within our awareness. Because if it happens outside of that, you don't know nothing about it, and it doesn't bother you, right? So the key is not to blame oneself, but to see that there's something here. I am seeing something that must be distorted. I'm projecting something about what I believe about myself onto this apparent other, and hoping that they will change, or if I can just communicate clearly. You know, if we can do some nonviolent communication, if we can do some, I'm okay, you're okay, or some, now I know about something new that I don't know about at all, called the Hoffman process. I'm sure it's very powerful. But so we go into these modes of engaging with the external as if it's the cause in our experience. And the gospel, the good news is that it isn't, that I am cause in my experience. And if we are addicted to or caught up in an identity that we are better served by being a victim, we will never move into this powerful experience of the one I am. We're all being invited into this powerful experience of awake awareness, observing, participating, playing in a 3D reality. Upon incarnation into this realm, I think there's a kind of cosmic joke going on, which is really, really tough. I do think it's a conundrum of sorts that leads us into what I just described as not being true, but it leads us into the perception that there's an out there that's causing my experience. We incarnate here clearly, and I'll be putting out a lot of things that you may or may not agree with, but it'll be a perspective that may be of benefit to you. We incarnate clearly already with a frequency both of fear and separation. Otherwise, we wouldn't be showing up on this planet in this 3D reality with the experience of being a victim. And even in the womb, most of us, if we have early pre-birth memories or experiences that we conclude occurred, then we may have, like this body-mind unit had, and the experience of being in the womb of, because I'll be 86 soon, apparently, that's what they're telling me, I don't believe it, but that in those wombs back then, those mothers, they were all doing what all the doctors were recommending to them for health, which was smoking. And we've, maybe you all have seen, it was many years later when I was an adult that I saw an image of the fetus when the mother would inhale and thereby cut off the oxygen, right? Inhale, and the fetus is going like that. And in a pre-birth memory session, I experienced that of being cut off, right? It's like, where's my oxygen coming from? And so now it's got game on at that point, whether it's intrauterine and pre-birth or at the very beginning when you are really, truly dependent on these caretakers. And they're as wounded as anybody ever was. Right? So now you've got two wounded caretakers who don't know what they're doing. You're like in the position, it's like, I hope the fuck somebody knows what they're doing around here. Right? But the feeling in the experience of not being attended to, maybe a new child rearing approach, which is self-soothing. So just let her cry. She needs to learn how to soothe herself, right? And in that experience, this newborn is left bereft and hopeless, and that gets internalized. So that's the beginning of our ego identities. They're all based in fear. They're all based in an experience of I don't matter, or I can't ever get what I want. An experience that opens us into some identity as hopeless. And so at that point, we are caught in a separation from ourselves and from what looks like it should be our resource or our source, which is the caretakers. So it continues in that way. The interesting thing about this is we sort of bring in what I call the quantum vertigo of the quantum revelation, is that frequency, that conclusion, I don't matter, I'm not important, creates an information into the quantum field that then appears as a reality. Now we are not only feel that way, we can prove it. I don't matter. I used to believe I don't matter. Now I can prove it to you. Let me tell you about my childhood. So it's a game on at that point. The awakening is into our true nature. The awakening is to cleanse the lens of perception that was created by that early conclusion. I'm a piece of shit, I don't matter. And all of the ramifications of that. And there are many, and most of us think that ours is the exception. Everybody else feels really great about themselves, but not me. They're writing songs of love, but not for me. So we have this experience then that we are believing that if someone else was just a little bit different, maybe a good friend, maybe someone that we've always felt a little bit adversarial dynamic with, but we believe if they could just be a little different, a little more considerate, a little more attentive, then we would be okay. Well, you first, right? Can you come home to yourself here and find out what it is that you're denying here that is actually creating the lens through which you experience what looks like an other, who's unkind and who doesn't understand you. You know, I always loved that, what we often heard from women of a certain age and a certain relatedness. He just doesn't get me, or she just doesn't get me. And I always am thinking, you're the one that just doesn't get you, honey, right? So it's our job. We are here, fully resourced to be present on our own behalf. But what we do in this Sangha is that we use the 6 steps to freedom process being triggered. There's a lot of this kind of work and many different versions of the psychological approach to better mental health. But we use this approach to wake up to who I am. I know who I am. I am the awareness in which all this stuff is arising. As that awareness, I am not this stuff. I can see what it is, looking like someone who's unkind to me, looking like not enough money, or not enough time, or not enough attention. And so we start to reclaim our attention particles from out there, bring it home, because this home, which is who you are, is the place where it can all be revised, where it can all be re-seen. And in that re-seeing, it clears. We cleanse the lens of perception. And so instead of seeing through a distortion lens of I'm not good enough, now it's, I think it's a Bible quote, through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Right? Then, it's this, it's the wonder, it's the beauty, it's the connection, it's the glory. And this is the work that we're about doing, because from this state of consciousness, we will create a new heaven and a new earth. We will have the as viewed, so appears. That's the admonition of quantum physics. And as we cleanse the lens of perception and perceive differently, then the difference arises looking like a new world. A world that's been relieved of guilt, a world that's been relieved of victimization, that's clear. And we will never do that at the ballot box. If we don't make the shift here, it doesn't happen. When we do make it here, then it's seen. We see through that lens, and then we see a new possibility, a new world, and we see that there are no others. I know who I am. And in that connection, that knowingness, in that glory, really, of the arising of a reality that is love, that is true. We are that. And the simple addressing of whenever you're triggered, to use that to clear out the distortion lens through which your perception is participating in creating a world of grief and separation and suffering. So I don't think that's what I was told to talk about today.
No, it's good.
It's okay. It's good.
Yeah, I asked you to talk about the distinction between our inner knowing,
Right,
and our egoic self. How do we
right.
discern?
Right. Yeah, well, there is a kind of litmus test to that. And what it is that if you need to get something, then it's ego. If it's transactional, it's ego. If it's an expression, a forthcomingness of connection, of like I said, expression, then that will be an expression of your true nature through your human design, through what we might, all of the, whether it's astrology or numerology or human design, all of it gives us information about the vehicle that we incarnated into, and the way that we express through that. And I think of it as having it, that it's the power of limits, because if you had all access, you would have stayed with God in the heaven. But when you have this way that specifically I can express this way, and from that place we have our participation in the awakening of the whole. We're playing our part. We begin to express in human design, if any of you have looked at the Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, you know that there are three expressions. The first one is shadow. The second one is gift. And the third one is the city, the highest expression. When you wake up to your true nature and you're no longer caught in that overriding limit of I'm a piece of shit or I don't matter, you will be expressing your human design through the gift of it. And so you're contributing to all what you came to contribute, which is so totally fulfilling for each one of us when we're in full expression. So one of the things, and this is a kind of diabolical aspect, who made this shit up? But one of the things that happens is that when we believe I don't matter, we have turned against ourselves. And now whatever happens out there is going to be some, if not an experience of that at the other end of that stick. And when the good thing is happening, we deeply intuit that it's not going to last. It's going to turn into shit sooner or later. And so when we're off that polarity, because we're coming into our awake expression through our human design, it's not who we are, it's what we have. When we come into that, then we are contributing to, like I said, a new heaven and a new earth. And we can trust it. from that place of your own awakeness, not believing you're a piece of shit or that you don't matter, which will distort everything you perceive. It distorts everything. You're living, it's as if these are the glasses that say, I don't matter, I'm a piece of shit. And everything you see is like that. Yeah. So when that clears, then you have direct connection to your reality. One of the interesting things for this body mind when the awakening occurred was I didn't understand. I knew some things, as we say, intellectually. I know that intellectually. That won't work. So I knew some things intellectually about judgment and self-judgment and so forth. But when the awakening occurred, which means that I no longer perceived myself as being here primarily for the benefit of others, that was my wound that continued to create a distortion field. When that happened, I was amazed by the experience of looking out into a reality and experiencing that it was arising in my consciousness, and it was that I am that. And so there's no judgment, there's just connection, and there's just this experience, and what it is love, right? Oneness. To know something in that way is to be one with it, and that's what we know as love.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
But when, I think where I get tripped up is when I don't discern the me. I can't discern the me, like you caught me with it the other day of like, oh, my heart is into something, and I didn't know that that was the me.
Right. Yeah, that's a subtle distinction, but easily recognizable, because it will not feel clear. It won't feel it won't feel clean. It's going to have some sense of, even if it's slight, it will have some sense of transactional, and it may be that that is a slight nuance or a perception. I'm such a good girl. Or I really did that right. And that was really good what I just did. I remembered to compliment her. I remembered to appreciate her, whatever. So whenever there's an I did it or an I as the protagonist, that's the me. Otherwise, it's just what's happening. You know, the I did it, I never know what I just said. I never know what I'm going to say. I mean, there is no me here. There hasn't been a me here for over 15 years. And the freedom of that moves us into the ease, the peace, and the power of authenticity. And that's what changes reality.
Any questions, thoughts? Yeah, Robert.
So, Polly, earlier you were talking about if it's transactional, that we're in our ego. But, I mean, seems necessary to engage in some transactional things, buy groceries, buy gas. But then at what point do you get, well, gee, this is transactional? If we're talking to a friend and I'll buy lunch today, you buy lunch tomorrow, is that, I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around where that is.
Yeah, well, I think the language is a pointer to it. To the transaction means, this is my delineation of what you're pointing to, because exchange is one thing, but if I'm going to get mine, or if I am doing this, this is what I'll get. There's that underlying sense of a me that has a motive. I think will point to that. The exchange goes on all the time, I mean, if it's breathing, it's carbon monoxide in air and breathing, and there is the experience of connecting to another. I mean, for me to get around in the world and in my life now, and dependent on other people. That's not transactional because I'm not trying to get anything, but we are connected in, like, if when you talk about buying lunch one day or the next day, it feels like just a natural kind of exchange. And that's different from transactional. And maybe that's just my use of that word. But it'll have the underlying motivation to get something. That makes sense, Robert?
Oh,
Yes.
I'm wondering if having the attachment to that transaction is where the issue comes. Because if you put it out that, yeah, I'm gonna buy dinner today, and it's just a normal thing, but then the person doesn't buy the dinner, but you get compensated in a different way, and you're just like, whatever, let's just go with the flow. Then it's just in the flow.
Right.
It's not a me.
But
Oh,
see-
now I'm triggered. I
But
can't
see,
eat my
Polly
lunch.
would never think, this is where she's not transactional, she would never think that there's gonna be a payback at any point, right?
Well, I mean, if it's said, because I know Robert and friends, they like to say, I'm gonna do it this time and you do it next time, you know, so it's like, once it's, I don't know, like it just,
Yeah,
but just not being in that
right,
attachment to it.
right. Yeah, and it does a smack of attachment that you would have it mean something about you or mean something about them, like the judgment you're pointing to.
Yeah.
And that is a distinction, I think.
There's just something really wild Polly does with money that I've never seen done before, which is no attachment. Seriously, no
Well,
attachment.
when you can't see what's in your bank account, you have to give up any concern for results. You're like. Oh, but the attachment is a low frequency, and so it will put you into a tit for tat kind of mind, even if it's subconscious, and the expansiveness of the freedom that you know you're one with what is, with everything, with everybody, relieves you of any concern for results.
Polly, can I ask you a couple of questions about this?
Yes, we have.
Well, like this morning, I have a new friend and he's kind of new on the island. I wanted to make a good connection with him. And I offered to take him out for coffee, we went out for coffee. And, you know, he was appropriately grateful. But I did have an objective, right? I wanted him to know that I cared about him. I wanted him to enjoy the coffee. So, I think what you're getting at is that there's a difference. I mean, that is a transaction. I pay money, I get coffee, that's a transaction.
Right.
I'm trying to understand more about when it crosses over into my ego, when it crosses over into like me and him. Like I did want to make an impression on him. I wanted him to like me.
Mhm.
Where did I go wrong?
No, I'm not sure that you did. It's like, it sounds like it worked and he likes you.
Okay, a new standard is born.
That's right. Yeah, you know, the flow of exchange is one thing. The giving something to get something is another.
Okay.
And I felt, I didn't feel any of that in what you described. It's an ordinary way to behave, to connect, is like, I mean, people help me all the time, right? They're probably all expecting something, which is too bad. No, you know, it's such a, we know the difference, we can feel the spirit of it, can't we? You know.
So I think it goes back to what Christy was saying. If I have some kind of like latent desire or some internal tension around this, like he has to like me if I buy him coffee, that's where my ego is involved. If I just go out for coffee and he likes his coffee and we have a good time,
Right.
party out.
Exactly. Yeah, the no concern for results is the higher frequency, which means that there's not a transactional motivation. No concern for results. Transactions imply a concern for results. And there certainly may be a picture like sharing something or sharing a meal or buying coffee or whatever. But it's in a larger context of love and connection and friendship, right?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, dear.
Nina, this is so fascinating because I've been feeling this in myself more. So I have a friend, we'll just stay in the go out to coffee or dinner kind of,
Mhm.
template for it, where I have a friend, we go out to dinners. She has a lot more money than I do, sometimes she pays. And I have no sense that I'm obligated to
Mm.
then pay the next time. I want to,
Right,
but I can feel that she does that because she cares about me.
right,
And there's absolutely no strings.
right.
And then when I pay for her, which I do, when I hang on or feel motor, grab the thing quickly enough. I don't feel any sense of a string attached.
Right.
It feels loving.
Exactly.
But I do see in myself and it can be so subtle. I'll say to somebody, oh, nice shoes. And I can feel that part of me that's going, I want them to like me. Right? It's a feeling. And it has a different quality.
That's
to it.
right.
But it doesn't, I don't go, well, that was a bad thing to do, Nina. It just goes, oh, wow, there's a transaction. I want I recognize it as, it's normal. It's not bad. But I'm seeing,
What was the example, Nina?
like I say to something like nice hairdo or nice shoes or let me carry your bag.
Uh-huh.
And I can feel that I want something. This it's
Right,
like a
good notice.
sensation
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
body.
Yeah.
And go, okay,
Uh-huh.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
It has a different feeling.
Exactly. And that is an adaptive behavior that's coming from the womb.
Right.
It may be very slight and subtle as you're
Right.
pointing to, but when we try the spirit of it, it's motivated from I want more attention. I want you to love me. I want you to notice me. Yeah.
And how was Geo's wanting different than that?
Well, it's just, I think it was just a part of the flow. And I suspect that you weren't contemplating your motivation for it priorly. When you reported it to us, you had the entire picture and the outcome, and so you reported that. But I suspect in the dynamic of just a new friend and an offering, it's like a movement toward that you weren't motivated transactionally.
Well, it's very subtle because I wanted him to see me, to know me
Mhm.
as a generous person.
Mhm.
I
That's
mean, that was
transactional.
more subtle. I mean, I also was like, let's have coffee. It wasn't like
Right.
thoughts.
Bad neighborhood.
Totally.
So Lindsay and Lee both have their hand up.
Mm.
Lindsay.
Oh, I was just gonna say for me, the more honest I allow myself to be and the more willing that I am, then I can just feel the texture of the energy as opposed to my mind's label. Yeah, so that's what's been helpful for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Lee.
Sorry, I have a little bit of laryngitis. I have there's a sticky situation for me that it's with my daughter. I can see and know that there's wounds and things that she isn't ready to process. But in that journey, my experience is that no matter how much we give to her, it's never enough. And that there's also a way that I feel unseen or appreciated and disrespected. And what I'm feeling now is that I need to have a conversation that names that without trying to say she has to change. But there's a boundary that I feel that her way of treating me is not acceptable to me. And I don't want to be silent about it, but it's sticky. But because I feel like there's a part of me that feels like if I'm silent, I'm not being honest, and I'm also perpetuating something that doesn't feel okay to me. So I'm just curious what your perspective is around that.
Yeah, well, there's a fundamental aspect of the teachings that has to do with authenticity. But it's to, look at your own motivation for wanting to express with her. I don't, are you in touch with your motivation, Lee, for wanting? I heard some of it at the beginning, but I think I lost it. It's like you've been feeling like you've been shut down or repressed by not being able to say what was true for you. Is that
I
right?
feel like it's not that I've been shut down. I feel like I kept hoping that she would shift, or I was, wanting to be with my grandchildren and loving being with my grandchildren and wanting to support her. But I feel like it's gone on too long in terms of um, being caught in her story and taking me for granted. And I feel that um, um, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't feel right to me to uh, not to continue it. I feel like there's some way that I'm participating in allowing her story, and I can't get her. I'm not going to try and force her to change, but I feel like there's something in me that has to change.
Yeah, brilliant, yeah. And so the dynamic between the two of you is a trigger for you, right? Are you familiar with the 6 steps, Lee?
I'm not.
Yeah, it's a process that we use in this Sangha and with people who show up to connect with us that has to do with being triggered, which is what you've been describing. And the dynamic between you and your daughter, you're triggered. The second step is to acknowledge that it's about me, which is what you just expressed, which is really good. The third step is, what are the feelings? So do you mind sharing that right now, the
No, it's
feelings?
fine.
Let's do this.
I mean, for a long time, I felt there's something shifting in me, but for a long time, I felt sad and I felt resentful.
Mhm.
And I think what I feel right now is a need to have a kind of boundary and self-care in a certain way of wanting to love her and also let go. And
And what does that feel? How does that feel to you? Let me describe it to you. It sounds like you're experiencing wanting to be able to express something and frustrated that you can't. So that feeling must be something like frustration. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that the direction?
I think, yeah, when I've tried to express something before, she has completely been unwilling to hear it. But in a way, I was wanting her to change from those other times when I was trying to express something. And what I feel right now is not wanting to I would love it if she changed, but that's not what I feel like I need to express. What I need to express is I don't feel okay about not being seen and feel unvalued. It's not okay with me. I don't know what she'll do with it, but I feel like I need to somehow express that.
Right. And so that feeling, those feelings that you just described, do you have an early memory of feeling that way? Feeling frustrated, feeling unseen, unacknowledged, whatever those are?
As a child, you mean?
Yeah.
Um, I think I didn't, in the midst of the kind of turmoil of what was happening for my parents, um, I think there was a way that what my feelings weren't seen.
When that was going on, Lee, in that early childhood family dynamic, you believed it meant something about you. Just free associate right now. What did you conclude when that was going on? Or what might you have concluded when that was going on? I must be.
What comes up for me is I have to take care of them and I have to stand up for, I have to stand up for myself in a way that holds tight.
The child concluded something about herself, right? And that, does that describe that early experience in your conclusion? What was happening for that little Lee when it was such a craziness in her home? What did she believe it meant about her? Maybe part of it was what you just pointed to then, was the belief it's all up to me or I'll have to do it, I suspect.
That's part of it, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Anything else?
I think there were things that were they were untouchable. So that's interesting. It was because the feelings, there were so many feelings I could perceive that were there, but they weren't expressed. So
Right.
this feeling of it's untouchable.
Right.
I didn't know how
So
to.
yeah, it felt like there was stuff there that you couldn't know, that you couldn't get.
I felt it was there, but I didn't know what was there,
Right, exactly, that's
and
right.
it was untouchable.
Yeah. So when we have that experience, we believe it means something about us because we don't have any other context. So just free associate what you concluded that it meant about you. I must be.
Mm.
Be back with the feeling and back with the family and the dynamic. That little girl concluded something.
I must be on my own.
It's all up to me, kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah, so in this modeling, what happened with that conclusion was it got repressed, and from that repression, it got projected. That's created the lens through which you have, I suspect that you have had a lifetime of taking on a lot of the responsibility for what might look like it should have been others, right? I don't know if that's true. But the experience or the feeling that when you look out into the world and you're seeing it through the lens of it's all up to me, then you see a world that you're being magnetized into. This whole thing with your daughter has been, and even now, resides within you as something that's up to you.
Mhm.
The resolution, the possibility. The sixth step in this process is to, with the light of awareness that you and I are turning on right now, with the perception of what you concluded and how that's been the lens through which you've seen your world, the light of awareness shining on this will begin to dispel it. Knowing yourself as the awareness who has had this conclusion, and out of that conclusion has created a way of being in the world and in relationship. Is the light, this light represents your true nature as awake awareness. Does that make sense to you? I don't know anything about you. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense to me. It's
Okay, where now in the simplistic way of looking at it, you're now aware of something that's been operative in your experience ever since you were a little girl.
Mhm.
And part of it is, and I'm just speaking this now, and you can always correct me, but part of it is it's all up to me.
Mhm.
When you started telling us about the dynamic with your daughter, you said, I know it's up to me to do it. Yeah. So what we want is to see that that was an unavoidable conclusion by that little Lee, and that's been operative ever since. That's the way she sees the world, sees relationship. And with the forgiveness will be the dispelling of that conclusion. It's been like an operating system. It was repressed and it's been running. It's been how you see the world. Right? So although this doesn't seem to work directly in the dynamic with you and your daughter, it's a clearing within you that's a distortion of how you've seen reality. This does include your daughter.
Mhm.
It includes everything. So today, in this work that we've just done, I want you to forgive yourself for ever having believed that it's all up to you. Does that make sense to you, Lee?
It does, yeah.
Good, yeah, yeah. I forgive myself for ever having believed it's all up to me, right? That doesn't make any sense, does it? But it did to that 5-year-old or that 3-year-old, yeah. And it was an energetic conclusion.
Mhm.
So we use forgiveness to shift out of what's been so operative in our experience,
Mhm.
because we don't want to work at the level of the problem. I don't want to convince you that it's not all up to you. I want you to not believe that it's all up to you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I
Thank you.
hope that's helpful. Yes.
It is helpful. It is. Thank you.
Yes, we are. Thank you. You sure it's not all up to us? Well, it's all up to you. It's up to her, though. At least the exception. Got it. The interesting thing is that there's a way in which it is all up to us, but only in the way that we have access to. We don't have it's all up to us in the 3D reality, looking like the family. Like making mommy happy, hoping daddy doesn't cause a problem, all of that.
So saying the right thing to her daughter is not gonna fix it.
No. But she has more likelihood of saying what will fix it, and it won't fix it necessarily, but expressing authentically as she clears this distortion field.
Well, yeah, when you said that, you were talking about a mother smoking, when I thought about, oh my God. Never even thought of that, my mother smoked Pall Malls
Right,
continually.
yeah,
And then she quit when she was in her 50s, but I never really got that, she smoked probably the whole time.
right.
What the hell was that doing?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, ferociously she smoked.
I can remember being in the back seat of a car, both my parents smoked. They'd have the windows all rolled up and they're both smoking away. And I'm in the back seat with car sickness, and I can remember my mother saying, remember, we lived in LA, Laurel, Alabama. She'd say, I don't know what's wrong with her, right? She just gets sick every time we ride around. I think I sort of got what was going on, but I didn't have any way to express it. They were always looking for cures for my car sickness, never assuming that their smoking had anything to do with it. Where are we?
We have about 7 more minutes. If anyone would like to ask a question or share a challenge.
I just have a wonder because I love Mayan and Aztec archaeology and Olmec. And those civilizations disappeared without a trace. And I'm wondering if we all continue in this path where we are rising above our egos and ourselves. I wonder if we just, and they'll wonder, what happened to them? Where did they go?
Well, Lily, haven't you had experiences in your life where you were living in a certain place and it was your whole world, and then you relocated?
Yeah.
Oh, that whole world that you were in was gone, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
So archaeologists would wonder why there's all these abandoned houses in Maui Meadows.
We're all ascending.
No worries, there'll be squatters.
Waters, nice, higher frequency.
Yeah, reality, we all have the experience of reality changing
Yeah.
it's like, and with just small things, and of course, big things too. But that this reality is dependent upon consciousness, the 3D reality, one of my favorite stories is the story that's always told is if a tree falls in the wood and there's nobody there to hear it, is there any sound? And the quantum physics version, if a tree falls in the wood and there's nobody there, there's no tree.
Right.
It's like we're a totally different premise
Yeah.
of the nature of reality.
If there's nobody else, we can just take a pause, a couple minutes break here, and people who want to leave, you're free to leave, and thank you so much, Polly, and Polly. Polly offers us by donation, there's a basket here in the back of the room, and there's Venmo and PayPal. And we're so happy that you were all with us, and we're gonna go, I'll let you know when we're gonna go into the meditation, it'll be 45 minutes of silent meditation.